Battlefield 4 is a game that I hold really close to my heart. From constant changes and improvements over the years to help stabilize rough early launch issues, to fantastic spectacles in an open sandbox, and an actually halfway decent campaign. What's up all? I'm David, and this video is going to be focused on Battlefield 4, but we have so many more Battlefield videos cooking up for 2042, so definitely subscribe and hit that bell button so you'll always be in the know. Your feedback means a lot to me. But for now, let's take a quick trip through memory lane. I originally got into Battlefield with 1942 on a garbage Windows XP PC, playing against bots and staring at the intro cutscene, absolutely stunned and convinced that video games reached their peak in looking realistic. Now most of my time was spent running around and looking for the planes and various vehicles and just cruising around. My childhood best friend was extremely into Battlefield Vietnam, and later on Battlefield 2, but all I knew was the prestige of the name and experiencing those games secondhand. Fast forward to after being swept away by Modern Warfare 2 and other entries in the Call of Duty franchise throughout middle and high school, and Battlefield was a little absent from my FPS life. In 2013, Battlefield 4 was my first real experience with the series when I actually played games as a hobby. Now I had just received the Xbox One complete with the shitty Kinect for my birthday, and the only games that I had at launch were Forza 5 and Rise Son of Rome. I was desperate for something to play, and since I loved shooters and was an early adopter of buying digital games through the Xbox store, I stumbled on Battlefield 4. Now at this point, I dove into the campaign. I know it's not the biggest thing players go for, nor is it the primary mode Battlefield is known for, but keep in mind, back in 2013, before all the battle royales and live service or free-to-play games were everywhere, most shooters put as strong an emphasis on single player as they did their multiplayer.
Well, no
With shooters, you had about a 6 to 12 hour campaign, and then if you weren't an achievement hunter, you'd go into a, hopefully, fun multiplayer with your buddies. Battlefield 4 had the luxury of both. By the time the Xbox One and PS4 generations was in full swing, split-screen co-op was quickly becoming a distant memory. You either had to use Xbox Live in separate consoles, or you could just toss the controller around and take turns between lives, which is what my buddies and I did. And I mean all of my college dorm mates and I played. We didn't even play to win or get a lot of kills and rock a wicked KD. I actually didn't even know what good KDs were until years later when I started going hardcore into Destiny and Call of Duty PvP. What I do remember was when I first got the game, my roommate kept laughing when I'd die. And at first I got pissed, I thought he was laughing at me, when in fact, he was laughing at the situation and the ways that the deaths were happening. I mean, you're flying around, crashing into other jets or buildings, or you're on a quad bike and you fly over a landmine and blow up and explode. Like, that is funny. We'd pass the controller around and try to do dumb stunts. Like, really dumb. Like, ignoring the objectives and just base jumping off of buildings. Trying to do tricks on jets and fly as close to the skyscrapers as you dare, knowing damn well if you mess up it'd be another 10 minutes before you'd find another jet. Jump out of a plane and try to parachute into a helicopter with your squad. Only try to run people over with the quad bike. Just absolute silliness. Directly tied to my fascination with Battlefield 4 was what allowed all of that crazy insanity to happen in the first place. Keep in mind, a lot of mainstream AAA games throughout the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generation were fairly linear and restrictive with where you could go and what you could do. This was especially true when it comes to multiplayer matches, where you effectively had a few objectives like killing bad guys and going to capture points. It's honestly a good time to mention that every time I talk about Battlefield 4's spectacle and moments of grandeur from this point on, there's this equal amount of just comedy, like pure silliness. And that separates Battlefield 4 from its successors in a big way. Battlefield 1 and 5 seemed more focused on trying to create this gritty, serious type atmosphere, which is fine. I mean, I love playing them both, but if there was one thing about Battlefield 4's multiplayer, it's that it never took itself too seriously. And I mean, just look at this shit. How could you keep a straight face? Battlefield's contribution as a series was, sure, do your normal objectives, but we won't tell you how you're supposed to do it. Want to plant a tank on a flag point? Fine. Want to airmail your jet and then parachute away into enemy territory? No problem. Want to just chill with your squad and repair their vehicles? Congratulations, you're my new best friend. Battlefield 4 stayed true to that philosophy and was just so open in establishing an arena of creating as much mayhem as possible. Battlefield truly loves chaos, and Battlefield 4 would up the ante with LEVOLUTION. Now, we go deep into why LEVOLUTION was so crazy in its own right in another video, but to sum it up briefly here, LEVOLUTION was a turning point in conquest matches where the map would distinctly change after being triggered by the players in many instances. The iconic LEVOLUTION in Battlefield is the Siege of Shanghai building collapsing over Objective Point C. Everyone has seen that one. And during the early launch period, a LEVOLUTION infuriatingly usually ended and getting booted from the server because it was just too much for the game to handle. But as patches came in and the game started to stabilize, they quickly became highlights for me. The first time I saw the Hainan Resort crumble in front of me, or that massive Parasol Storm aircraft carrier spectacularly crash on shore, all that will always stay with me. And all of this is to say that Battlefield 4 not only had an exceptionally grand and open sandbox, but this idea of spectacle and silliness was everywhere, and the game encouraged an environment where getting a high KD was the last thing on my mind. Rather, I was here purely to tag along for those Battlefield moments. These memories I had with Battlefield 4 give it an extremely special place in my heart, and by far are the top reasons I will always love this game. But whereas all this was subjective to my own experience, there are also a dozen reasons why Battlefield 4 was so damn good from a support standpoint as well. And most of it involves at how fine-tuned the gameplay became. To understand the leaps Battlefield 4 has made, you need to know what the game was like at launch. Battlefield 4 was a disaster with bugs and netcode issues, but with laser focus from DICE that persisted and was iterated upon, it eventually overcame a lot of its struggles, though not until nearly a year later after its launch, which definitely did not sit well with the community at first. It's worth noting that when we talk about Battlefield 4 as of right now, we're factoring in so much added post-launch content and DLC, a long list of varied maps, an incredible lineup of fun and distinct weapons and weapon archetypes. Most importantly, there are a lot of different game modes, which always ensure some degree of novelty and change for those who are easily bored by repetition. If you're lukewarm on the maps, that's fine, since there always seem to be a new build, strategy, or even vehicle that you can master. And for those premium and DLC owners, the content kept growing. There were so many broken metas and ridiculous strategies used, but despite that hilarity or frustration of those eras, DICE has always been pretty solid about sandbox tuning, and the current state of the Battlefield 4 meta feels really good. Another thing Battlefield 4 has is a very passionate community, which is reflected in the custom servers that are available. Want to play only on Goldmud Railway? No worries. Want a 24/7 Operation Locker 64-player server? Here you go, you maniac. Right. There were servers with fast respawn rates and others that harbored fun spaces for Battlefield fanatics to always go back to. And all of this culminated in a complete Battlefield experience that ironed out the launch year kinks and allowed PC and console players to properly enjoy the experience of a 64-player server dialed up to an 11. The biggest reason Battlefield 4 is so good is that it passes the basic smell test. Is this game fun? And the answer being absolutely, which is really all that matters at the end of the day. Sure, for some, especially non-Battlefield veterans, it can take a minute to get adjusted to the fact that everything looks gray or brown, or that enemies tend to blend in with the environment, but all of that quickly subsides. A lot of people like to compare Battlefield 4 as a half-step improvement over Battlefield 3, and to that, I say it really depends on which one you grew up with. One thing I will say is that Battlefield 4 had a much better balance between grounded firefights and absolute action movie mayhem than Battlefield 3 for starters. In Battlefield 4, you wouldn't have your entire vision get all blurry and suppressed from taking damage, for instance. And the progression system in Battlefield 4 felt rewarding. Rank ups were awesome, and unlocking new cosmetics and skins for your guns to unleash on your enemies was just an added plus. Battlefield might be the only shooter that doesn't exclude any style of gamer either. The fact that I, a casual, love it so much alongside the diehards isn't the only proof. Battlefield does not require what Call of Duty requires, which is arcadey fast twitch skills above all else. You might not be going off on a massive kill streak in Battlefield all the time, but no matter what kind of player you are, every action you take dramatically contributes to your team, particularly in Conquest. In Battlefield, it is not uncommon to go several minutes without firing a single shot, particularly if you're not playing Assault and diving in objectives, or if you're on a large map. Hell, I've seen helicopter pilots just hover as high as possible over the middle of the map to act as an extra spawn zone, where we just spawn in, only to jump out immediately to get a better vantage point mid-map. Battlefield gets better the more imaginative that you get, and that might be the most important reason why this game is so good. Now that Battlefield 2042 has been announced and returned to a near future setting, if you need something to get your feet wet while waiting, it is a perfect time to return to Battlefield 4. The game is still going strong and has plenty of fun servers, and I guarantee it will be a good time. Now that I've gone a little misty-eyed on this game, I want to hear your stories as well. Tell me what you remember fondly about Battlefield 4, or tell me what you're excited about for 2042 in the comments. I read all of them. Thanks for watching.